Hello and thank you for joining us on the Monday edition of Journalist Hangout. I'm Ayodele Uzubakun. Today on the program, travelers stranded in Lagos, Abuja airports as UK bans flight from Nigeria over Omicron variant. Federal government moves to avert ASU strike as ultimatum over unmet agreement lapses. And later on the show, Governor Zulum demands greater efforts from the military as insurgents launch rockets attack on Maduguri. I'll be hanging out with Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Gani Kaide Balogun. So if you're ready, let the hangout start now. Thank you for staying with us. The fear of the new Omicron variant of COVID-19 appears to be the beginning of travel bans against Africa by Western countries. Measures by the United Kingdom, United States, and Canada to curtail its spread have drastically affected international flight schedules, thereby creating discomforts for passengers. In Nigeria, many UK-bound passengers were stranded at the Nnamdi Azikwe International Airport, Abuja, and the Murtala Muhammed International Airport, Lagos. This is compounded by decision of the UK to ban flights from Nigeria and put visa application on red list countries on hold. Babajide, I listened to the ADB chairman today, Professor Akinwumi, and I see no reason why African countries will be the targets, because when you say something emanated from Netherlands and South Africa was honest enough to say, oh, we've seen traces in South Africa, and all of a sudden the African countries, you just put them on travel ban, and we know those European countries that they've detected this same Omicron virus there, and they've not put them on the same ban like the United Kingdom did to us now.
At least there have been far more cases recorded in the UK, no less than 38 cases. The United States, the Omicron variant is present in 15 states. Portugal, as at the last count, had about 78 cases.
Netherlands.
If Portugal had 78 cases, yes, you could argue that the index case was discovered in South Africa. But even at that, South Africa does not have as many cases as some of the European countries. So to now target Africa as the countries that should suffer visa ban, countries that
put on red list.
You ban inward flights from is, in my view, extremely wicked, extremely punitive.
This Utah period, a lot of people who have said that, oh, they are coming to Nigeria, and some have said that, oh, they'll be going to the UK. You know, now if you're not a citizen of the United Kingdom, you'll be made to quarantine. You go to quarantine for 10 days.
No, they are not even.
Right, they're not even taking
airlifting. Yes. They won't airlift you except you are citizens of UK or you are of Irish descent. So they are stopping such people. Now, if you are a resident, your case is different. But those who want to visit the country, they have stopped such people. You can't visit at this time. That one is an outright ban.
You'll be quarantined and you're meant to pay $2,000.
Yes, that's why when I looked at the story, talking about travel ban, I felt that headline was dishonest. There is no travel ban. In fact, if a flight still came in from the UK today, and airlifted people today to the UK. So if a ban was in place, people would not have been able to move from Nigeria to the UK. But they have said, okay, right now we are not entertaining fresh applications from people who want to visit the UK. And then they have said, if you are not a citizen, because they reckon that some of their own people could be here and stranded. So such people, they are willing to leave such people. If you look at the British Airways and the Virgin, they are the biggest, or I would say they are the heavy hitters when it comes to lifting of people to the UK. They are the airlines.
Very busy routes.
Yes, they are the airlines that are most profitable. But they also reckon that there are so many of their own people here who would want to go and do Christmas in the UK, who will not for any reason do Christmas in Nigeria. So for such people, they will come here and pick. If you see the inward bound aircraft had plenty of passengers, but when it was departing, there were just very few. So which means they had effectively shut out the people affected by their new travel procedures.
GKB, I wonder if this COVID-19, if it's something that emanated from Africa like China, that it would have been very, very serious.
No. By now, we'll be a pariah continent. Nobody will do business with us. We're not even allowed to breathe, not to talk of leaving the continent. This has always been in the works. Don't forget that the first thing they expected was that if Africa was infected by COVID-19, they'll be picking corpses on the streets. That's how bad they think of us. And they forgot that this is the same Nigeria that handled Ebola with such professional thing that even the UN commended us. And that we'll be handling virus.
That prediction by Mrs. Gates did not
come to pass, because the reality is that the herd immunity within the African continent is the highest in the world. Because don't forget, malaria is still the biggest killer when it comes to things like this. It has killed before revolutionaries, it has killed people who came to colonize us, but we are still here. So we know that we will get to a point where they must look for a scapegoat. And this is what Yorubas they say, that sometimes it's not good to tell the truth. Because the South African people are trying to be honest and let them know what is happening. Because even the original case was not of African descent. He was also a visitor to the continent that was caught in Botswana. And when it was tested and realized it was this, now we are bearing the consequence for somebody's incompetence. It is unfortunate, but what can we say?
That principle of reciprocity that they use in diplomacy, can we not apply it? That's okay.
You can
it will help us more.
If you think that you do not have so much to lose. You know, airlines will suffer with these travel procedures in place, and even Nigeria as a country will also lose revenue. So sometimes we have to weigh the options. We were very open. Many people felt that we did not even shut our airspace on time back then, because it was an Italian that came here and infected our people. At a point when countries were already shutting their doors, we didn't shut our doors. We were arguing that no, it's not right, we should not shut our doors, especially to the Chinese. You know, and look at how many of our prominent people have died in the hands of COVID-19. So,
a lot of people.
Countries, while I believe that the Britons, the Canadians have every right to protect their people, I still think that their actions are very discriminatory and very harsh on African people.
Look at the number of countries.
Because I looked at the countries,
look at
the first set of countries that the Canadians banned, for example, you see Nigeria, you see Malawi, you see Egypt, South Africa. So why these 4 countries? Why not start from Portugal, for example, with more than 70 cases? You know? So, but I think their own feeling is that here on this continent, our systems are not foolproof enough. And a lot of our own leaders too have admitted that people come into Nigeria, refuse to quarantine, people come into Nigeria,
Bribe,
drop fake
bribe
names,
at the port of entry,
drop fake names so that you cannot reach them. And then
Fake
our
address.
immigration officials, a lot of them are so crooked that once you give them a little money, they allow you to commit blue murder. So it's these things make people to have a very bad attitude towards us. That look, you cannot trust. Look at. Just take your mind back to the way the UAE behave towards us. They believe
till
that
tomorrow. I think Emirates just started this week.
yes, December 5. They felt that our system was not trustworthy. They now said, okay, we are coming up with what amounted to discriminatory safety protocols targeted at Nigerian passengers. And the government said, no, you can't do this to us. But they stood their ground. That no, this is what, if they were sure that, look, at the points of departure in our country, that all the safety protocols will be adhered to, that no one will be able to get around it, honestly, they won't come up with such measures. And countries of the world are now prepared to brush aside global brotherhood just to keep themselves protected. Because what COVID-19 has done to the world is very, very grievous. People have lost their jobs. Now, countries that are coming back, some countries went into recession, they are trying to bounce back. They don't want anything that will disrupt their process of recovery. Though that's why they are becoming extremely hostile, extremely harsh. That look, we do not want this, because anything that will take them back, they know that it will be difficult to recover.
Let's come back to Nigeria. Let's look at our response now. In terms of the way, like, I've taken my first jab, it was even AstraZeneca that I took this thing, and we were given a card with a barcode, but it's after some months when I started making inquiries, asking people all around, and a lot of people said, what's that vaccination? As in, so from the general statistics now, not up to 5% have been vaccinated in Nigeria.
Only about 6 million. Only about 6 million.
6 million.
I think you are being generous with your percentage, because there are 200 million Nigerians and about 5 million have been vaccinated.
When you ask some people, they will just say, what's that vaccination?
That's less than 2%. And that's the tragedy that we face as a nation. We have not been consistent in things that are of serious concern to others. We behave in a way that makes others look at us as very unserious people. Don't forget there was a time, like I said, that we faced adversity before. But we have a tendency that once the thing blows over, we go back to business as usual. And that's why our airports and train stations and borders are behaving like COVID-19 is just something that we hear about in movies. Because they not only not apply no protocols to it, they also refuse to enforce the protocols that are put in place by the government of the day. And there seems to be no consequences for those who are punished along this line. I think, while I do not agree that what the Canadians and the Americans and are basically based on altruistic values, I think there is a little hint of racism in this, because we all know that there are more porous areas in South America when it comes to things like this, and they've not been banned. And we know how many people get into Portugal through the Isle of Morocco every day, and they've not been banned. And at least not as fast as they've done for Africa. And then, like you said, the number coming from Nigeria is so low compared to some that you think we deserve to be on the red note, which to me is discriminatory. I agree that we have challenges, failure of leadership and failure of institutions. But that is one thing that we and we alone can work on. No other person can help us.
WHO is yet to tell us, the devastating effects of this
variant,
Omicron variant. But the way you look at it, like GKB said, as at the time we started, we had some states building isolation centers and everything. But right now, we've just gone back. We've gone back to our default mode. We are not prepared. We yes, Professor Abayemi 2 months ago actually warned against this variant, that it was going to come and everything. But then when you look at the streets now, it's not so encouraging, the level of compliance, and even the level of compliance in vaccination. Religious leaders and people are not so encouraging their members to go for this vaccination.
Well, I think Providence is what really I would thank for where we are.
Low numbers, yeah.
Because the truth is,
the person that predicted that they are going to find dead bodies.
Everyone knows that that's just a doomsday prophecy that did not come to pass. None of them, what they were thinking of was, look, if this sort of thing were to happen, we don't have the health infrastructure to withstand the pandemic if it were to descend heavily on us. The way it descended on America, and make America to start looking for support from Japan, from smaller countries and all that. So, but in our own case, somehow, I will not say that our response has been encouraging. After all, in this country,
are we testing right
saw
now?
Governors who are even saying no, educated governors who are saying no, this thing does not exist. And they will be blowing big grammar all over the place to show that they are academics. But you are saying that something that's scientifically proven
all over the world,
you are saying that it does not exist until they began to test. Because when you fail to allow people to do the PCR test, you can then claim that it does not exist in your state. But when you allow for testing to take place, as it then eventually took place in Calabar, we started seeing cases. And all the highfalutin words that the governor is
remember that governor
is ill reputed for amounted to nothing at the end of the day. We are lucky. We are just lucky. Because if this thing were to descend heavily on us, there is no way we will survive. When in December we ran out of oxygen at the isolation camp in Gwagwalada, people were dying, big men, small men, they were dying within a number of like 5 days, about 5 days. No oxygen. They were dying. So, but somehow the thing has really gone down. No one can deny that fact. And to get people to adhere to safety protocols the way they were doing around April and May is difficult, because they can feel it in the air that we seem to have conquered this virus. You know, and that's why people are saying, look, if you are forcing people not to enter their offices because they've not done vaccination, we have not reached that emergency level. Because even in the UK, no one is forcing people to take vaccination. It's still persuasion. Like any other community health initiative, you must persuade people. You can't force people. So we are just lucky as a country that, okay, this is, because look at South Africa now. More than 78,000 people already dead. So if we were to face the problem the way some countries had faced it, honestly, I don't know how we will have survived.
Countries like Canada, even with my certificate card with my barcode and everything, say they don't want.
Yeah, we have a very bad rep.
They've not recognized it. They're not recognizing it, and they're saying that's 50,000 tests that we used to do, PCR tests.
Well, you are not the only one. There was a family that needed to be in Canada early next week, and this thing affected them because about 6 of them had paid for the tickets and all that. And what you said was really what they are purpose, that their tests are not valid. They have to go back to the basics. Even some of us who have our own, they give you a code on your phone. That you don't need to carry the card. Just show the code, they can scan it and tell you your status. They still refuse to acknowledge it.
Because it was reported that some people are acquiring that card.
I'm not denying
people are paying money to acquire that card at the entry points into our country, Abuja and Lagos. It was reported.
We are our own worst enemies.
That even the 50,000 PCR, this thing, people were doctoring it.
There's nothing you cannot get at our airport.
Just to get it.
I'm sorry to say.
Favorable.
Remember now, in the days of yellow card, you can simply walk into
African
That
countries.
is it. So if they know that that's the way we are.
Because
We have to
there
clean up our
was a day we went to Nairobi and they isolated us from Nigeria and queried our yellow cards. It was that funny. They were playing fool on everybody. They said Nigerians step aside. And we are not recognizing, you have to take our own tests.
Okay.
It is
All
that
right,
bad.
moving on now. If action begets action, then the expiration of a 3-week ultimatum issued by the members of the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, would spell fresh round of strike in public universities. But the federal government has begun moves to prevent an industrial action in public universities after expiration of the ultimatum. On Sunday, Minister of State for Education, Emeka Nwajuba, said the ministry has written a letter to the Ministry of Finance on the need for payment of allowances to staff of universities. Yes, I think from the vibe I'm getting now,
Seriousness.
they are making, at least the federal government is making some moves before the expiration of that ultimatum. How
It has
effective?
expired already. It has
It has expired,
today.
Today.
Yes. It was 21 days ultimatum.
Ultimatum.
And today is the 21st day.
Today is 6th.
So,
So
and how
must you
effective?
wait until
The last
final
day.
You know, you see, this thing, you make promises, you don't fulfill those promises. At a point, I also would think that it is being deliberately provoked to go on strike. Remember, this strike was suspended in December last year after students had been at home for 9 months. 9 months. That's a whole
Throughout the
year.
COVID period.
That's a whole year because there is no school that allows students to even stay on campus for one calendar year.
Yes.
That's a full session.
So that is a whole year wasted. And after it was suspended, you got into a memorandum of action with these guys. The issue of renegotiation of the 2009 agreement with ASU, because that was supposed to be periodically renegotiated. That was the agreement back then. Government and ASU decided that yes, that renegotiation would take place. And Professor Murtala Muhammed, who used to head the National Universities Commission, was the man given the mandate of leading that renegotiation on behalf of government. Since that time, we have not had anything. Though Murtala Muhammed promised that, look, he was going to do his best to ensure that these gray areas were addressed. Nothing has happened. The feelers that ASU has is that the Murtala had submitted his report, but government is sitting on that report, refusing to take action.
Just hold on your thought there. We'll take this break. When we come back, we'll talk more. It's still Journalist Hangout. We'll be right back after this breather. Please don't go away. It's Journalist Hangout, and I still have Babajide Kolade Otitoju and Ganika Edo Balogun in-house. And we are looking at the... Before we went on that break, we were talking about the measures taken by the government to avert this proposed strike by ASU.
You know, as I was saying, there are outstanding issues dating back to the year 2009. Now, one agreement that was reached at that time was that memorandum of understanding of 2009 should be renegotiated from time to time. And also is complaining that the government had not renegotiated that agreement. So university professors had been earning the same salary since God knows when. Because the issue of their remuneration has not been renegotiated. So what they want to see is from time to time, okay, given the prevailing circumstances, what do you think we should earn at this point in time? So they are stuck on the same wages. It's one of the reasons they are grumbling. Now, everyone knows that the IPPIS has issues. Talk to policemen, talk to some of the people who are enrolled on the IPPIS, and also said the IPPIS cannot work in a university setting. In the university setting, you have lecturers come from other countries to come and do sabbatical here, and you pay them. But IPPIS will not capture you because you are not an employee. As far as IPPIS is concerned, you can only earn salary in one place. You are an individual. But university lecturers move from one university to another, become a visiting lecturer somewhere. That is how the university system works. And they said, look, we don't want this. In any case, we have had all kinds of stories about the ineffectiveness of the IPPIS itself. And we can come up with our own. They then said, okay, government then said, come up with something that can be a replacement for this. They then came up with the University Transparency and Accountability Solution, UTAS. Maybe you are the one who said they should come up with their own. They came up with their own. You refuse to implement. You are still insisting that it is that IPPIS that must carry the day. IPPIS, effectively, as a VC, you cannot hire. Even if you hire, then you must pay with your own salary because that person will not be captured on the IPPIS. So there are all kinds of problems, and you look at all the demands. Which one has been met? Government said, okay, on the issue of end allowance that it will release 30 billion. It went ahead to release only 20. And there are areas of promotion and all that. My own feeling is, look, ASU could have its own problems, but never get into agreements that you know you will not implement or that you do not have the funds to implement. And that is what the Senate president said to them, that look, you go into agreement with people when you know you don't have the funds. So this is the thing. If government is saying that it is moving quickly now to avert a strike, why did it have to wait this long? You waited till the final day of a 21-day ultimatum to start making your moves. Meanwhile, they have already started meeting.
Now that the Minister of Finance, the Minister of State for Education is saying that they've written to the Minister of Finance, so that I was told that a certain money is being held at the Central Bank of Nigeria and it has not been disbursed. I don't know.
This government seems to be working at cross purposes, and it's not really peculiar to the ASU problem. Don't forget the same thing with the Ministry of Sports. When the supervising minister will have made promises on behalf of the government, but the thing will not get stuck when you get to Ministry of Finance, looking for one reason or the other to be officious. We seem to run our government more like a cult, and that's why we have the problem we have. I'm not really surprised that the minister is just telling us today, or this week, that they wrote to the Ministry of Finance. This should not be something that will be news. It should be part and parcel of the original arrangement that was reached with these people in December. That is what we've reached, call off your strike, and then you do a note of demand, as they call it, and send it to the Ministry of Finance. That we've agreed with the lecturers about this and this amount. Please release this money as per fallibility. We are talking of almost 12 months later. This is almost a full year. And you are just telling us on the last day of the warning that you've written for something you want to have done 1 year ago. That is how incompetent people who run certain aspects of our country are in this particular area. Because it doesn't make sense. This should not be news. In fact, in some other countries, I'm sure, this announcement will lead to the sack of the minister. Because this is not news. What have you done beyond that? If it's the Minister of Finance holding it up, let us know. Tell the lecturers. They will understand. But you are just telling them that that's all on your gra-gra. It was on the last day of your threats that we wrote a letter to the Ministry of Finance to do this. We are in deep trouble.
Jide, the Speaker of the House of Representatives even called the stakeholders, had a meeting with them, and even the Minister of Finance was attended that meeting. At the end of the day, from those things that you've highlighted, do you see the federal government meeting all or some? And do you think ASU will back down if they just have some of their demands met? Because these UTAS that we're talking about and several other demands that is on the table, it's going to be very difficult to actually implement it.
If the will is there,
Yes, it will.
if the will is there, they can implement these things within even the resources available. It's about getting them to realize that, look, this is where we find ourselves. The country is largely insolvent. Now, this is what we can do. You can come to a middle ground. Both parties should be ready to talk and make concessions. But to refuse out of all of those demands, you are known to have implemented only one. That is the issue of visitation panels to universities. You know, when UNILAG had that crisis, it was one of the demands that ASU made that, look, let's have visitation panels, visitation yes, for those universities. So it is the president as the visitor to the university that will now send a committee to the university, and it was that committee that investigated what happened at UNILAG and then found Babalakin guilty of not following procedure in firing the VC. He didn't have the power to unilaterally fire the VC. It has to be a decision taken jointly with the ASU, you know. So they've done that now. Government has now come up with the visitation panels, or committees for the universities. That's one of the demands that they've met. Then, in my view, one of the very important conditions that ASU will want met is the issue of injection of some money to freshen up infrastructure in the universities. You know, they call it the University Revitalization Fund. What is it that you want to put on the table? Let us see. Let us know.
Because the level of decay.
Yes. Have you seen pictures of students taking lectures, sitting on the bare floor, some of them hanging by the window? Some of those windows, the window panes are gone. So students are just hanging on them to receive instruction.
But I thought that was why they started the ETF, Education Trust Fund.
No,
in the first place.
See, the quantum of funds that you need is too gargantuan for ETF. If you go to some universities, go to BUK, for example, and see the work that ETF has done. Go even to the Federal University Lokoja. They put a lot of infrastructure, but if you look at the number of federal universities,
it's just like a drop inside.
Yes, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Look at now. Look at this lecture theater.
And they said
this one is even better. I said on the ground.
What is the number, the required number of students?
I wish we can find that picture. You see that one on the window, on the bare floor in the university. That's the thing. You see, that's this one's. Are beautiful. It's a luxury.
They are in a five-star hotel.
These ones are smiling.
They are in the five-star hotel.
So let us, because they think that the injection of the funds is critical to the survival of federal universities. A lot of these our elites do not care. They will set up private universities. Every year they are licensing private universities, and they are watching the public universities die.
Yes.
You see the toilets of some of these universities, you almost collapse.
Don't go there.
Somebody filmed, one of Nigeria's oldest university filmed the. I didn't want to mention.
I saw the video.
You know, when I saw the thing, so that they won't say, "What of your own school? Go and film your own school." You know, that's why I wanted to keep quiet. You know, our people now, not your social media, they will go there now. So I saw the thing. I said, "What?"
I'm telling you.
And I know that some universities will be a lot worse than that. So this is an announcement saying, inject funds. Inject funds. Save these universities from collapse. As we say, VCs, stop giving these elites honorary doctorate. Let us work together. Work with ASU to draw attention to the decay in the system, so that money can be released for us to revitalize this university. If we see when universities go to defend their budget, what gets given to them is a drop in the ocean, not sufficient
at all
to make good things happen.
You are giving peanuts.
In the West, if you see schools, you go
colleges,
go and collect government loan. Like in America, now if you want to read medicine,
yeah,
they will give you loan, and when you start working, years after, they'll take back.
I think even Obama got something like that.
The federal government of Nigeria cannot fund quality education 100% again.
They cannot. Two reasons, and I'll go back to Obama in a second. In Western Nigeria, even the great M.K. Abiola was given a scholarship. Even in our set, I remember that there was a time the VC said, if you make first class and upper 2-1, the school absorb you and train you. It's all part of the regeneration process. And that's why Unilag has this fantastic alumni that takes care of their system. But we'll come back to that. The problem that we face here is what Gidi has said clearly in black and white. The Nigerian elite has moved beyond public education. They don't see it as viable, and they want it to die. Don't forget, just last week, a proprietor of a private university had the audacity to accuse the government of not supporting a private business he set up with grants. That's how we saw that. I saw that as basically the first stone that I threw. Because don't be surprised, in 10 years, the federal government will be paying basic elements for these private universities set up by individuals. That's how bad the system has become.
And they have their own
student loans in the US,
and they force students to pay extortionate.
Seriously, the money they pay is. I will not mention a university that has only one class, 4 students, and they told the parents, "We'll get more students as you go along." So there's really no timetable for that class. They will pass out when they pass out.
Some pay up to $1 million or even more than
1.5 million, and they have 4 students. And the woman told the father, "Don't worry, your daughter will make first class because there are not that many." Imagine that level of logic. So when you have first class from the university, I laugh. How many are you in the class? They say we are only 6.
And finally,
that's where we are going.
Finally, for a battle-weary state like Borno, an early morning rockets attack on Maiduguri would leave the governor, Professor Babagana Zulum, livid. After the rocket attack on 1,000 housing estates and 3 other places in the state's capital by Boko Haram /ISWAP fighters, Governor Zulum called on the military to step up their operations to tackle activities of the terrorists in the states. Today, we thought we succeeded in putting these people back to their camp or territories. That coming to Maiduguri now, coming close to Maiduguri now is not something I envisaged earlier with the impression I've gotten about this war on terrorism.
You see, when you get impressions, try on your own to validate the impressions that you get. If you can't validate the impressions, frankly, don't go to town with it. This is the lesson that I've learned with this war. And as a young boy, in my teenage years, 10 years, I read where Delegiwa said, unfortunately in all wars, the greatest casualty is the truth.
Yeah, that's the first casualty.
So you hear, oh, this one has happened, oh, that one has happened. You will never know unless you investigate on your own. So this is a war that is by no means ended. We still have a long way to go. All we can do is support our troops as we are doing, pray for them, because we are losing troops. Look at the attack on Ran, headquarters of Kalabalge local government last week. We lost 7 soldiers. We lost 7 soldiers and 2 officers, the commanding officer and a lieutenant. They came to the army base to attack the base. So it's worrisome when they can lob rockets into Maiduguri. And the governor's concern was that they must have moved close, because the range of the rockets suggests that they must have moved close to Maiduguri before firing. Which means that if the rockets had accuracy, if they acquire more deadly rockets
with longer reach
and accuracy,
Maiduguri will be in trouble.
You know, when Saddam was lobbing Scud missiles, and they were saying that the Scud missiles were not really accurate. That if he had acquired more accurate missiles, oh my God, we would have been in trouble. The world would have been in trouble. So for them to get that close and then lob those rockets, and it's not the first time.
Well, look at the damages.
Yes, but nobody died. If they used the more lethal rockets with plenty of TNT on it, explosive devices on it, it will kill so many people. It will kill so many people.
That contains chemical.
The warhead, the explosives attached to it is what will cause many people to die and will set houses ablaze. Okay, we are talking about 40 barrels. You can imagine somebody lobs 40 barrels into Maiduguri. Too many people will die. Too many people will die. Yes. So
40 barrels.
Yes. Fires 40 rounds a minute. You know? So that's the concern of the governor, that they've got to push them far away to the point that the city of Maiduguri can be felt safe. As long as they can fire into Maiduguri, despite all the efforts and the trenches that we have dug to make it Maiduguri impregnable, to make it difficult for them to roll their gun trucks, you know, into the city, yet they are still able to lob the thing into. So that's his concern, that they should be able to deal decisively with these guys, push them far away. If they were in Borno North, for example, you limit them to Borno North. There's no way that their rockets can find the range to get to Maiduguri. Well, at least Maiduguri town has to be safe.
Yeah. Even for perception's sake.
Yeah.
Because I agree with the governor, he's one of the biggest supporters of our military in the last few years. He has shown total support for whatever they do. And for him to come out like this means that he realized that if Maiduguri is penetrable, then the war itself is on its back foot. Because like you said, a few months ago we were so sure that the people are on the throes of disappearing, that they've lost the will to fight, and they've been put on the defensive. But it's obvious that nothing of that nature is happening, and that we are in it for a long haul. And that is the danger. And the governor is right. There are certain things that you can only do in a war to give the people the impression you are still in control. One of them is the unpenetrable element of your capital city. Don't forget, Iraq fell solely because the capital fell. Oh, sorry, Afghanistan fell because Kabul fell. They've taken over most of the country, but there is still hope and they cannot take the capital. Once they took the airport and took the city, even the US had to pack up and go. That's what the government is afraid of. He doesn't want to fail state.
Which is the problem they are facing in Ethiopia now.
Yeah.
Because the guys are taking over the hinterland.
Jude, if you look at this video now, like this might be a new housing estate that was just built.
On the outskirts of town.
You know, these people succeeded. The level of development that Governor Babagana Zulu, you know, want to bring into that state, but with these setbacks now, what we're getting is quite discouraging. That in spite of his own attempts to, you know, develop that state,
the governor will rebuild a town. They will come, destroy the town, chase away the people there. But the governor is trying to relocate people to places that they are left. You can see, look at Malam Fatori, for example. The governor is determined that since 2014, nobody has lived in Malam Fatori. It's only soldiers that were there. And the governor said, no, enough. What will soldiers be doing in that town? Let me bring people there. Let Nigerians who have fled to Niger Republic, because it's a border town. Let Nigerians who have fled to Niger Republic come back to their home country and live in their towns. That's what he's trying to do. Since he made that move known, Boko Haram has been targeting Malam Fatori. They've been targeting that area just to send the signal that, look, don't bring people here.
Don't try it.
Don't bring people here. That's what they are trying to do. They want that Borno not to be literally dominated by them. That's what they want. And you find a situation in which a local government headquarters, you have people there. But once you travel like 4 kilometers out of the local government, your life could be in danger. People are just living inside the local government headquarters, but they cannot venture out of the local government by certain kilometers. So the governor is desperate. He knows that if he can keep the state safe, the economy of the state will improve, and he will be able to take development to all parts of the state. But as things are now, he can't take development to all parts of the state. Yes, and it's stubborn.
You can't develop the states.
There are some towns in Mafa local government. Mafa is where he grew up.
Just imagine having this kind of governor in peacetime.
Yes, with his determination and his inventiveness. It can only be imagined the progress that the state will have seen. But these guys are not cooperating with him. As he's relocating people, building houses for them, they are chasing people away from those places. Chasing people away from. So the frustration that he demonstrates sometimes is understandable. He too had almost lost his life in his hands. They've attacked his convoy at least 3 times.
Multiple occasions, yeah.
You know, because they want to send a signal to him that, look, whatever you are doing, and he's saying that he wants all the IDPs to go home by the end of December. You know?
Just sounding impossible.
Shetima too, remember he made that promise, and I said back then that no, governor, it's not possible. In the end, I was proved right. But this person is more determined and more willing to take risk. But at the same time, can we guarantee the safety of people being relocated to dangerous areas?
Do you have enough troops?
Do you have enough troops to protect them? Because this era of super camps have left many communities undefended. When you want to build a super camp, you are concentrating a lot of your arsenal in that super camp, concentrating plenty of troops in that super camp, and withdrawing many of the troops guarding small communities and bringing them there.
And these terrorists will still have the infantry to attack the
super camp. Of course. They are known to have dislodged some super camps now. It's on record. They've dislodged some super camp. It depends on what you come with. Because if they do their own recce and they realize that, in this super camp, they have also number of gun trucks, they have also number of troops, they can come with double that number. It's just the sensible thing for soldiers to do is when they see that they are outnumbered, both in terms of the weapons and personnel, they will flee. When they flee, they will wait for reinforcement from the Air Force and maybe nearby commands, nearby bases. Then they will come back and retake their base. That's usually what happens. But people think that, oh, if they hear that they took a base, that is such a bad thing. No, retreat is part of strategy in the army. You retreat.
Tactical maneuver.
Yes, you retreat.
Except when you are fighting a war for territory and you are not on the offensive. And then you are forced to go into retreat every time you're under attack. Now, I want to commend the governor for what he has done. But you should not feel bad. History of civilization.
Tactical retreat, that's what it's called.
History of civilization all over the world will tell him that if you cannot return people to their own base, at least let them be safe. It's ideal for them to go back home. But all the cities in the world that became mega cities were once fortified fortresses. Kano itself was a fortress. Ibadan, of course, you know, because people will come into town to feel protected. So that's what will amount to now, to keep them safe. Let's keep the super camps.
I want to thank you, Osiare Gani Kaide Balogun.
Always a pleasure.
For your contribution.
Welcome back to Lagos.
Yes, and the maestro himself, BKO, Babajide Kolade Ostaju.
What is welcome back to Lagos? It's been in Lagos.
We're winding now for the year and counting down to the end of the year.
Yes. Christmas, you can't wait. You can't wait for him to take us out.
Yes.
Along with his Oga.
We are ready if you are.
Okay. And that's our offering today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch the repeat broadcast tonight at 11, and don't forget to join us on Journalist Hangout on Sunday from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. We're on YouTube, youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I'm Ayodele Zuba. We'll see you tomorrow, and God bless Nigeria.